Hey guys, and welcome to or back to the Pause in Pursuit podcast with your host, Summer Clark. So finally, the day is here. We have the episode with Greg Derrett, all about hosting EO here in the UK. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think you guys will as well, especially if you are interested in trying out for the team in the future or interested in helping manage the team in the future and stuff like that. The more behind the scenes, what it's like to be management, what it's like to be at the event and as part of the team. And yeah, I had a really great conversation with Greg. We were talking for ages, and I think you guys are going to love it. Before we jump into that, there's not too much to say with my weekly recap. Again, I'm still recovering from my stress fracture in my foot. Update on that. It is what it is. I'm still using the offloading shoe, which means I can walk without pain, which is great. Just a shame it took me all these weeks and getting one for myself before I actually got one. As if you see my posts on social media, I've been having a lot of trouble with the NHS just being useless, to be honest, with it. So yeah, I think we're getting somewhere. I'm booked in to see a recommended sports physio on what day is it? It'll be Wednesday today, tomorrow. So tomorrow at 2 p.m. I will be seeing a sports physio that was recommended to me by someone in agility, one of the GB juniors actually, and she highly recommended her. So I'm off to see her on Thursday. Hopefully she can basically give me the correct information and advice and, kind of give me a plan to return to agility at full capacity, however long that takes. I don't know if you saw, you guys probably saw my post regarding Olympia. I honestly am not sure if that's going to happen. At the moment, I'm thinking probably not. Especially after talking to Greg, I've kind of thought, Team GB is my priority and the tryouts are in February. I want to be at max capacity for February, and that is more likely to happen. The only way that can happen is if I only do what I'm perfectly 100% safe to do. Also, I hate going into anything and doing, giving 50%. I know sometimes you have to, but, if I think, well, I'm going to go into Olympia and not be able to give it my all anyway, that doesn't sit right with me. I want to go and do something and do it properly. So I'll keep you guys updated, but that those are my current thoughts. This might change after I've seen the sports physio tomorrow. But that will be in next week's weekly update. This morning, I'm recording this on yesterday for you guys on Tuesday. I just had Meg Hunt round from Pace Therapy, and she gave Arrow his six weekly physio appointment, and he's feeling good. And then she also treated me as well. Honestly, agony, but so good. Back, calves, sorted me out. We put all of this money and time and resources into our dogs, but we're athletes too. And, like my foot has taught me and other things I've had in the past, we need maintaining, we need looking after physically as well, because it is also very strenuous on our bodies as well as our dogs. And as you guys know, I do a lot outside of agility too, with weightlifting, lots of walking, running, etc. So yeah, that is now something I'm going to maintain, which is physio for myself, which I highly recommend all of you guys do if you take your sports seriously. I think it's super important. I know it's kind of expensive sometimes, but, I don't go out spending loads of money on alcohol or things like that. So the money that a lot of people spend on that, I put into my physio and Arrow's physio. So it's priorities, isn't it? It's like, if something's really important to you, you can usually, not always, but usually find the resources to get that in place. So that is pretty much my weekly update. Another thing I just wanted to quickly say on here, you guys probably saw on my story not too long ago, is that if you guys ever are curious or don't understand something I post online, the quickest and easiest and most sure way to get the answer is to ask me directly. I've had a few sort of people say, this person's wondering, and I'm thinking, just come to me. Like, why? You'll never know the answer unless you come to me. So I'm not scary. I don't bite, just ask me. No point talking to other people about it because they probably don't know either. And it's just wasting your time, basically, trying to come up with, explanations, or why bother with that time wasting when you can just come to me and get the definite answer. So again, DMs are always open. I'm not scary. I won't bite you. Don't be afraid. Come to me and ask me. And I think that is everything. So without further ado, because I've been waffling as usual, I will let you guys listen to mine and Greg's conversation, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. So I'm sure pretty much everyone listening already knows who you are, but just in case anyone doesn't, or there's any abroad listeners, then do you want to just quickly introduce yourself and your background in agility, first of all?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me on today.
That's all right.
Yeah, I've been in agility a long time. Very late 80s, I started with a dog. First started competing in 1990. Competed throughout. Did fairly well nationally, winning most finals a few times. Competed for GB 21 times. Got a few medals that way. And took on the GB manager's role in 2020. So yeah, 5 years, nearly 5 years.
Yeah, COVID year.
Been judged a lot, several different continents. So and then used to do seminars around the world as well. So pretty much since I've been 13, 14 years old, my life has been dog agility in one way or another. So
amazing. 21 years on GB, that's a lot of caps.
yeah. It was a good period of time. I had 4 or 5 dogs on team, and so I really enjoyed my time on the team. It's just you get to a certain stage in life, and you realise it becomes hard work more than a hobby.
Yes,
I guess.
yeah, that's it.
It became a job to be on team, and I sort of fell in love with that side of it a little bit. I don't regret any of the time I spent on team. I really enjoyed being part of the team and competing at that level. It was a lot of fun, as well as nervous, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, always a bit of both.
Yeah.
So the first question then is, how did you become the manager of Team GB, and how long have you been in this role? So you've already said how long you've been in it, but how does that kind of come about?
It came. So I'd been on team up to that point, and to be honest, I pretty much got to a point where I didn't want to compete anymore internationally. In reality, part of me wasn't letting it go, but I knew deep down that I kind of achieved everything I thought I was going to achieve at that level. I'd got individual silver at AWC, and I felt probably I was at a stage where I wasn't ever going to beat that. I got a medal gold medal in team, so I was never going to top that. I could equal it. So I think I got to a point where I wasn't going to put in the work that I used to put in. I knew that. Decided I was really sort of going to be stepping back as a handler. The manager's role came up, and it also came up literally as COVID started. So in that way, I was quite lucky. I had 6 or 7 weeks to actually think, with nothing else going on in the world because we were locked down, just to think, did I really want to do this role? Should I apply? What could I bring to it? And had time to really actually decide that, actually, I kind of fancied giving it a go, tried to turn it around. So applied. I think we applied in sort of May 2020. So again, it was literally right in the middle of the lockdown sort of period of time. Had the interviews during lockdown, and was offered the job during lockdown. So I was. It came about at a good time for me, just because I was already deciding to walk away as a handler.
Yeah, perfect.
It also came as a good time because it actually allowed me to really think about, did I want to do it, and how would I do it? And I think probably without that, if I'd been working during that time, I probably wouldn't have taken it on.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Because of that the way of life at that time with COVID, where we were all doing nothing, it probably made it easier to think, I can take that on because I'm bored.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lots of time to spare.
That's really how it came about. I think there was 3 or 4 other applicants for the job, and I didn't think the Kennel Club would go for me just because of my other interest in life in agility, with my work commitments with WO being a rival to AWC in one respect, although I don't consider it as a rival. I consider it as a completely different event, a different time of year. It shouldn't be a rival, but I know others see it as that. So I was a little bit surprised that they went for me, but it was that. So that's how it came about, basically.
Yeah, amazing. I'm assuming you have to have like so many years experience and stuff like that to step into a management role at that stage.
Well, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I mean, I don't think it really was a criteria. I mean, I think it obviously helped that I'd been there, done it, knew what it took to do it with multiple dogs, had
True.
been on multiple teams with multiple different types of handlers, had I think 4 team managers I'd competed under, so I'd got the experience of that, which I'm sure helped me on the interview process, is that I could bring that to the table. At that point, I was certainly the most experienced handler probably in GB, and certainly the one who'd been on it the longest. So I'm sure that helped my case to sort of to get the job.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
there really wasn't a criteria. I mean, a lot of the application was about how would I run the team, how would I pick the team, how would I deal with sort of the negativity that comes with selecting a team.
Yes.
Which is always going to be when you're any sport. I think when you're making selections, you're always going to get backlash to some degree.
Absolutely.
So how would I deal with that? I think my role in my working life of running an organisation and running events, you learn to deal with negative criticism all the time. So I think that experience there probably helped as well, just because it's part of agility really nowadays. Is when you're running something or organising something, you're going to get a certain aspect of criticism for things you can't make everybody happy when you run events, and certainly running team, you can't make everybody happy, that's for sure. So
never going to happen.
No, so all those kind of questions it was more those that was kind of the interview process. I had to do 2 interviews, had to do a presentation on how I would select the team. And because of COVID, I put hours of work into it. It was, I mean, that was one of the great things about COVID. I pretty much put the whole process together because we were shut down in the world. So it allowed me to really put quite a detailed presentation forward on how I would select a team. So that helped as well. That was one of the benefits of COVID, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you were at work as normal, then you probably wouldn't have had as much time. So it's
yeah,
perfect.
exactly. I mean, it would have been half-hearted efforts, but certainly that time of year, because I mean, through the interview process would have been WO normally, so I would have been exceptionally busy during the WO time. So I think if COVID hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't have been able to apply just because of when it was.
And I suppose if you've achieved all your goals as a handler up to that point, then it's like something else to work on, isn't it?
Yeah, I think when I was deciding whether to do it, I mean, that was it. I think GB was in a place where it needed changing round. It got stale, I think. Mark, previous manager, been in the role for nearly 10 years, so I think it was time for change on things like that. And it was a fresh challenge to me. It was like, okay, well, it's something I haven't really done. What, can I do it? Can I manage the team? Can I be in that role and make a difference? So there's that aspect of a fresh challenge for me was definitely part of the decision.
Yeah, definitely. So what was hosting EO in the UK like for you then, as the manager of Team GB?
Yeah, so I mean, as manager, the Kennel were quite clear they didn't want any input from Team GB, so it wouldn't be an influence. So they wanted to keep it really 2 separate things. So obviously, I have no part of the organising, but running it at home, we'd had the experience of juniors the year before. I think you can say there's a bit of home advantage, but I also think probably it's more disadvantage.
Yeah.
But for me, when you compete abroad or you compete at the championships normally, the journey and the preparation for the journey kind of gets you in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
Whereas for a lot of our team, they were driving, an hour up the road and going to they've been to a lot. So that was one of my concerns. It was obviously a lot easier logistically organising everything because there was far less travel. There was far less worry about people. People didn't have to worry about their dogs and all the travel paperwork you need. So that made it easy. But yeah, I think the biggest thing we were concerned about was that mindset wouldn't be great because you hadn't got that travel, and you were at Dallas Burton, which most GB handlers have competed at 2 or 3 times already that year. So
yeah, that's it.
But yeah, other than that, actually, when the event started running, it felt fairly normal. You know, management team were in a hotel, so we were traveling from a hotel every day to on site. So that all felt very normal. And when you're in the arena or around the rings, it felt very, very similar to what it normally.
As a handler, I'd say definitely it did sort of feel like you got there and it kind of just felt like an Iconics to start with, because like I said, we're there all the time for Iconics. So I think it was about sort of switching your mindset a little bit, before you actually compete. So yeah, I definitely think that'd be a bit of a disadvantage, if anything.
Yeah, I agree. I think our handlers did really well with dealing with that. I mean, we'd spoken about it, I think, as a team a couple of times, that everyone just needed to think about how they were going to switch on. So I think everyone was prepared, and I think it's one of the good jobs we did this year is that handlers did actually manage to step up to an international performance and not just running a local show iconic sort of performance. It's one of the good things that handlers achieved this year, definitely.
Yeah, and I suppose at least you don't have the tiredness from travelling and stuff like that.
Yeah,
or added stress.
There's definite those advantages that you've not done. Next year, for example, traveling to Portugal, I think most people are going to be arriving after 2-3 day journey. So
yeah, for sure.
There's those considerations and cost implications and all that stuff that people then get to worry about a little bit more. Whereas we didn't have that so much here.
Definitely. So in your opinion then, going off the back of that, how did hosting EO in the UK affect your ability to manage the team? So when the actual event was taking place?
I was worried about stuff, but I don't think it really did. So I was worried we'd struggle to get a team atmosphere as good as we had in previous years, because in previous years you've all travelled and you're all arriving at a hotel, or majority are at a hotel. So you tend to be able to get that team together a bit more. So I was a little bit concerned that we wouldn't be able to create that, but I think we did fairly quickly. I think we had the base camp sort of tent that we all used for team meetings, so we managed to keep that. And I think most people were on site as well, so most people camped. So although we did have people in Airbnbs and people in hotels, so it's slightly separated. Also, obviously, with a bigger team, I think that was our biggest challenge, was just managing that many people and also that many runs. And it's I think the Friday and Saturday of the event, we managed through 100 and something number of runs, which isn't. It doesn't sound like much when you haven't been a manager, but
it is though. Definitely one day.
You get emotionally involved in every single run that you stand on the line with and the finish line with, and you have to also. What's really challenging is someone can have for want of a better word, a disastrous run. So when they cross the finish line, you're consoling and trying to pick them back up, and then you have to immediately walk across from that to someone that's about to run and switch back into a completely different. But you've got to run, and then might be dealing with someone else who's really happy at the end of their run, and then switching. So you're constantly switching emotions basically, and kind of faking emotions at time when everyone's down that someone's had a bad run that was in contention, and not letting it affect the next person. So I think that was the most tiring thing, because we had to do that so many times. With runs, we were literally non-stop with it. So I think that was just the biggest challenge. It wasn't really being in Great Britain, it was the fact that Great Britain was allowed an extra 16 dogs this year.
Yeah, more people to manage.
Yeah, and we also had a couple of medal winners from the previous years, so we had 2 extra there as well. So we actually had an extra dogs to normal. So it was sort of a 40% increase in number, really. So, but yeah, I mean, it was quite nice being local, because going shopping and that, you know where to go to get just anything you needed. Whereas sometimes abroad, it's like, what shop do I need to find to?
Yeah, the added stress you don't want.
Yeah, just stuff for yourself, and so that made it easier. But on the whole, once it started running, it was the EO, so it was kind of the same format. If that makes sense.
I almost think as well, sometimes it's more nerve-wracking as a spectator, because kind of when you're a handler and you're on the line, you're kind of in your own little bubble, do you know what I mean? And you're not really thinking about the nerves once you're on the line, because you've got the job to do. But like when you're spectating, and I'll come out and my mum will be like shaking, and I'm thinking, surely you're not as nervous as I was. But like, you've got that for the whole way round, so you're watching the handlers go round, you know,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
there's nothing you can do. Do you know what I mean? So I'd say that
Yeah,
the emotions are just as bad.
It's a strange one because you're kind of, I think you're more than a spectator because you've selected that person. So you've got that. You've also got that responsibility, and you know, I'm sure the people we didn't select were thinking about how certain people were doing, and so you've got that bit of pressure in the back of your head as well as a manager. Just that I picked this person, and so not that they're going to let you down, but you know what I mean. That it's your decision that's being scrutinised more than as much as them being scrutinised a little bit of time. So you've got that kind of pressure. But yeah, I could have to say all the years I was handler, I used to get nervous, but I think sometimes in the last 3 years I've been more nervous as the manager than whenever I've been standing on the line myself. You know, it's in your hands when it's down to me now to perform. Whereas sometimes a manager, you're like, I've done all I can, and now it's down to somebody else. Yeah. It's a bit like being that backseat driver, isn't it? It's someone else is in charge and not you, and that can be nerve-wracking as well at times.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely. So how do you think competing in their home country affected Team GB's handlers and their dogs? So we've already kind of brushed on this, but this involves the dogs as well. So, you know, do you think it affected them overall positively or overall negatively if you had to choose?
I would say not a huge difference. Like I said, I think we were worried for the handlers they wouldn't get into the sort of mindset. I think the majority did, so I think that was good. The dogs, I think it's probably easy for them.
Yes, definitely.
They weren't in hotels. They weren't, you know, which a lot of them were in their normal caravan setup. So it certainly probably benefited them to be in that situation. Our medal tally was good. I think it was roughly the same as the previous year when we've been in Denmark. So I think we performed as well. Certainly our teams performed better. I think it's the best team performance we ever had across the heights. You know, was that home advantage? Was that selection? Was that the way that people worked together? You know, what was brought to the teams more? You know, why? I don't think we'll ever know exactly why we performed well in those.
Probably a mix of everything, really.
Yeah, so I think possibly that. I think people were, maybe dogs were more relaxed, therefore more at ease, less pressure.
The weather as well, do you think, you know, the heat and conditions like that being more familiar? Because I know you've been abroad before and it's been like outrageously hot to the point where it had to be, you know, put off and stuff like that, which obviously we're not used to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously weather conditions is the norm for us. So, you know, I think that was good. You know, potentially next year in Portugal, it's obviously could be incredibly hot. So
that's it.
That might need acclimatization and things people need to do a bit more, be more aware of, and looking after their dogs again a bit more next year. Just being aware of the heat issue, you know, not going to be silly. Whereas here we could train normally, you know, we got to train the day before, but then most EOs allow you to do that now. So, but yeah, I think probably there's certainly less worried about. I mean, we didn't have any concerns about how would a dog react in the atmosphere because I think they'd all been at this venue. So
literally.
But I think we've got a pretty solid team anyway. I'm not sure we've really got any dogs now that we'd ever worry that we're going to freak out in EO. Yeah, certainly. So it's hard to answer whether we did better or not. I think there was pros and cons. Like I said, as we thought beforehand, I think the team were just great in being proactive and being ready for stuff. I think that was a really important part of our stuff this year, is that where we thought there could be a problem, they made sure there wasn't. So that was, again, great credit to our handlers to make sure they did get themselves in the right mindset. You know, I don't think I ever felt that there was any handler at any point where I was like, oh, you're not mentally ready for this. They all felt, you know, on start lines, I felt every handler it felt like a normal international event. So that was really good. I mean, we were a little bit concerned about things like the ring party, you know, being too familiar with the handlers and, you know, chatting.
In the queue.
You know, just being too friendly and, you know, oh, how are you? Nice to see you. Whereas
a bit distracted.
That in such an event. But again, I think the ring party part of the, you know, I'd mentioned it to the guys who were running the event that we were a little bit concerned about that, and should they just brief the ring parties that if one of our handlers doesn't know they want to talk, don't try and make them, sort of thing. And the ring party was great. I don't think we had any issues with any anything like that as well. So
yeah. It's reading the room, I suppose, as well. I'm assuming you're quite good now at sort of looking at a handler and sort of knowing where they're at mentally by, how they're behaving, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think having been, quite a few of the people on the team I've obviously competed with or against for several years, so you tend to know them anyway. But having been in the role now 3 years, I think Matt, myself, and then Anthony at times coming into the coaching with the adults this year, I think we're starting to learn. When somebody's nervous, you can just the little traits they do and what to do to calm them down a little bit, or even pick them up the other way. Some people are a little bit too relaxed at times, and it's about refocusing them. So we're starting to learn handlers better and know what to do with them.
Yeah, because everyone's different, aren't they? Everyone deals with it differently. So I suppose, especially when you have similar people on the team, year in year out, you get used to them.
Yeah, I mean, some people really like to sort of they start some dance and make a noise, and some go very, very quiet. Others want to be told what they're doing. Others don't want you to say anything. And it's those little traits that we are starting to get better with.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the handlers in our debriefs, we've spoken to them, and they've all said that if we feel something needs to be said, we should be saying it. So I think that's allowed Matt and I to be a bit more relaxed about what we do, because handlers have fed back that, if you're thinking something, say it. They'd rather know than us not say it. So
definitely,
I think that's put us more at ease that, we should be speaking. So
no, I agree with that. The worst thing is coming out of a run and then thinking, oh, if only. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you get everything out before the run, it's like, well, everything was out there. Do you know what I mean? Like, then it is what it is.
I think people are better off to know, and at this kind of level, that shouldn't be distracted. And if you're saying, number 10's come down a lot, look after number 10, or watch that tunnel exit turn or something. I think this level, the handlers are becoming good enough that they can cope with hearing that, and they kind of need to be honest. I think at this level that you can't always be watching that ring when you're getting your dog prepped and ready, and if something's happening, it's important that they get that information into them at the right time.
And it literally is little things like that could save a run in the end. So
absolutely, yeah. I think that's what we found. I think a few times we had in the first year or so, we were like, oh, I wish I'd said that before they went in. I could see that was going to happen, and I thought, no, shut up, don't say anything.
Yeah.
And then come out and it happened anyway. So you're like, well, what would we have lost? If I'd said it, we wouldn't have been in any worse situation than we would have hadn't. So
that's it.
That's one of the sort of the learning parts of the job, which you've never really thought about before. As a competitor, I mean, did a bit when we were in teams together. Some of my teammates in the past, we'd have say certain things to each other, and we'd know what to say, when to say, and when to remind people to do stuff. So I had a bit of that previously, but not to this level of you get as a manager with 52 dogs or whatever we had.
Definitely.
So,
Just backtracking a little bit then, obviously Joak was in the UK last year.
Yep.
So when we were talking about how it was to manage the team in the UK, do you think that having Joak last year helped when it came to having it in the UK this year for EO? Or do you not think that made much of a difference? Do you think you went into it a bit differently because you'd already kind of gone through it? Or
yeah, I think we were probably a bit more proactive for the adults. We made them aware that certain things might happen, and if something goes wrong, with the surface, Dallas Burton is not always the best surface, so we'd spoken about that. So I think everyone was just aware of stuff that where the goods and bads of Joak when it's in GB, we'd learned from those, that we could give people a heads up. If that happens, don't worry about it. Just crack on with your job. Don't let it affect you. And that bullshit blockers kind of thing is getting those into people's head that that if that happens, don't worry about it. The time you've got on time doesn't matter. Your job is to make sure, or our job as management team is to make sure that when you're going to run. You don't have to worry about what else is going on. So, that's not just venting the GB. That's everywhere. That our job is to make sure that the handlers don't have to worry about the logistics of an event. So, it's a little bit of favour because a couple of the people involved in the EO running but also help with GB, some of the Kennel Club staff. So I could send a message to them what's happening here and get the information. So it did benefit us as well a little bit that you knew who you could ask.
Yeah, definitely.
To get the information if it wasn't coming out on time. So Yeah, so I think Joac just allowed us to be prepared for the venue. I mean, the Joac in Great Britain, the weather turned really bad.
Very, yeah. I was just about to say that. Couldn't have been much worse this year, could it?
No, so we had, that experience was probably quite good as well, because we'd learned how to deal with the team when it goes, the weather does that. So, we'd thought about that. And so I think we were just, whether it's because it had been in Britain or whether just because it's our third year as management team, I think we felt a lot more. We had lots of procedures in place. If this was gonna happen, we would do this.
Yeah,
so
backup plans.
Yeah, and basically to make sure that the handlers weren't really affected by anything from weather to organisation to surface to judges to all those kind of things. That we could just make sure that we knew what we were doing, so the handlers could just focus on their dogs and performing when they actually stepped into the ring. So
yeah, and the juniors seemed to cope with that pretty well. Last year they still did pretty solid effort.
Juniors are probably a lot more hardier than adults when it comes to things like that. They tend to bounce back and have a lot more coping mechanisms, whether that's because they're still at school and doing things like this a bit more. I'm not sure, but juniors, from my experience with the GB juniors, is that they are much more resilient.
That's interesting, yeah. And a lot of them are less experienced as well, so that is really interesting.
Yeah, it's been something that I was quite surprised. I think we had in Finland one year they put us on a podium, and I knew that we shouldn't be on a podium. It was a mistake. So they called GB up, and I was standing with them saying, and I literally, as we walked in, I said, guys, they're going to take this off us. Don't worry. And they did. They as we stepped off the podium, they took the medals away.
Oh God.
And so we'd given them a heads up it was going to happen.
Okay.
But they were all like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if that had been some adult teams,
be gutted.
they would have been devastated and really struggled to come back from it. And the juniors were just like, oh well, we didn't win it. We didn't deserve that. It was a mistake by them, and then we'll move on. And really, like, very blasé about the fact they'd been given a podium and it was taken away from them.
Wow, yeah, we could learn from them.
Yeah, it was quite interesting just to see how the difference between your juniors and your adults, and the way they cope with those kind of issues. I guess as adults, we know they shouldn't happen, so we get more frustrated that mistake shouldn't have happened.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, and I wonder whether that plays a part in why adults tend to deal with it not as well.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, but yeah, so that is, maybe we should always try and have the juniors at a venue first, and
ship them over to Portugal next year, the week before, just for a test.
No, we will have 8 days or 6 days or something between the two next year. So maybe.
Yeah, it's a small margin, isn't it? It's all go.
Yeah,
what time of the year?
You see, actually less than that. It's probably 3 days between
the
last round of the adults and the first check-in, I think. So
so for management, it is literally back to back.
Yeah, we I mean, it sounds really cool. Oh, we're going to Portugal for 2.5 weeks, but it's not going to.
Not a holiday.
I think we're literally going to have the Monday and Tuesday off after EO, but I mean, normally you're pretty exhausted after EO the next day. So yeah, I think we'll probably just be sitting around a pool and for 24 hours before the next team arrives, kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, don't blame you. So what did the process of organising EO in the UK involve, and how long did it take? I know you said you're not the one that actually organises the event. But...
I mean, I said I wasn't involved at all in the organisation of the event. And again, I think the Kennel Club's policy was to make sure that GB was completely separate, so there could be no accusations of bias or anything like that.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
That was good in one respect. I think maybe we could have given more advice in another respect. So, and home advantage, if you're a football team, your groundsman does stuff for you. And so we didn't have any of that, which you can, right or wrong, we just didn't happen. So, but I know, I mean, there was obviously a lot of stuff put in place for the EO that was going to be here in 2020 that was cancelled. So a lot of it, I think, was already in place. So, but I guess theoretically they've been working on EO 2024 for 5 or 6 years because of the cancellation in 2020.
Yeah, again, another good thing that came from COVID for agility.
Yeah. So, but there was a working party from the Kennel Club, so you've got, which is volunteers, and then you've got the Kennel Club staff. So that's my understanding of how it worked, is you had a working party making decisions and the Kennel Club staff doing the work. But I really wasn't involved in any aspect of that at all. Which is good, which is probably good, to be honest, and easier for, we can just focus on the team management.
Yeah, I was going to say, I suppose your job leading up is the selection. Do you know what I mean? And getting the actual team together, which is the same for no matter what country that EO's in, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think we really thought much about HGB. Should we be picking anyone different? I think we'd have picked the same.
Yeah,
same
for
people,
sure. Definitely.
Regardless of where we were. So.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you think went well then, and why? So what went especially well this year as opposed to potentially other years?
I think for GB, our teams obviously were very successful. We nearly had a clean sweep in all 4 heights to get a medal. We were basically a last pole in the 4-dog relay cost us that. So that was an unfortunate pole. But our teams definitely performed really well this year. I think if I'm picking myself up, I think one thing that we've done as a management team is we've changed the attitude of team, that this is important. This is and also changed the way a lot of people run their team runs. I think we've just got people thinking. That's all we've asked them to do, really, is think about what does it take to win a medal in team, not about anything else, but what kind of run should you be doing, and also trying to put the onus on the teams to actually own their decisions, rather than just saying this do. I think we're obviously giving our opinions on what we think, but we're also trying to get teams to decide their own running orders. We're trying to get about how they run tactically, and just make people think more. So I think that's why we are doing better in team runs nowadays than we have done as a whole team. We've always tended to have a good team in a height. That we've always been there or thereabouts in one height throughout the 20 years. But what we haven't done is maintain it over multiple heights. So I think that's the difference. People are just thinking more and running to win rather than running to be the fastest dog. They're actually running to qualify, and then they're running to get on a podium. Which is important at this level. I think it's not as you have to think of when you're competing internationally. You can't just go out and do a run. You have to actually think. And I think that's what
be strategic.
We've asked. We've asked people to think. We've asked people to make decisions. We've asked people that I think it's also people know with our team management that if you're not performing, then you risk not being on team next year. It's not about just being on team now. It's about performing when you're on team, and I think that's something we've changed. And I think therefore, I honestly think GB should always be winning medals in team. It's our agility in Great Britain is designed for team events. The CC, you have to do 2 qualifying runs to get in the final.
Consistency.
To get to Olympia, you have to qualify 3 or 4 stages to get to that final. London Horse Show now. And even cross singles has been about gaining points and not necessarily winning heats. To this point, so we've got a culture of where we should be good at.
Definitely.
Strategic running to qualify for things.
It's a process, not just a one-off, go for it and hope.
Exactly. It's not about who can be the fastest on that one run. It's about CC's 3 runs, isn't it? You need to perform to a degree in all 3 runs that day. So, as a country, therefore, we are set up to. It benefits us, I think. People talk a lot about, we struggle abroad because they have all the advantages. Well, I don't think that's true. I think they do have advantages on us, but I think we have advantages as well.
Definitely.
And that is a big one. The CC, the structure of our qualifying systems in this country is an advantage. So sorry, your original question was about what we did well. I think that was the main thing. I think individually certain people did well. I think certain people didn't achieve what they could have done. So, but you're always going to get that as well. So what's the success? We brought home a good tally of medals. more than anybody else. So as a whole, the team was brilliant in that respect. I think we could have won more. So you could say, well, that's disappointing, but you're always going to have. I think when you've got a team, team of 32 dogs. Normally we had 52 this year, or whatever it was. You're always going to have. There's one or two that you miss. So,
no, that's it. And that's something for the following year or to work towards for future years, if that makes sense. Especially with like the development team this year and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the development team was a huge positive. I think if you look at, I still think Germany are the number one team for us to beat. Are winning more medals than the last couple of years, but they're winning better medals. They're winning gold, maybe we're winning silver. So although our numbers with now they're around all the time, which is brilliant. That's where we want to be. Our next step is to turn those silvers and bronzes into more golds.
Yes.
And why is Germany still able to produce more goals? Is you look at the experience of their squad.
Yeah.
I think all people that they've been there, done it multiple times. When one of their top dogs or top handlers isn't there, the replacement handler that comes in has been there and done it multiple times. I think that's my personal thought now, is that we need to build our numbers with experience so that we've got more depth in Great Britain. So I think the development team this year was a massive start to that. We carried it on in AWC, and I think that was a real bonus as well with a couple of people. I think it showed that that's worth doing. The feedback since the events, both events have been really worthwhile doing. People learned a lot. And I think it also puts a bit more pressure on the people that are in the team year in, year out. They know there's other people now getting off. It means they need to step up their game again. So, we're open about that, is that we want people that are regular team members. They can't be like rest on their laurels. They need to step up again, because we want
keep their spot.
To come through and start pressuring them. I'm very into my football, and if you look at all good football teams, they have a bit of experience. They have youth coming through, but they also have depth in the squad where there's pressure on places. And I think that's what we need to have with GB. That nobody's safe. The only person that's got a spot next year is someone that's got that individual medal, which therefore means they're automatically invited. Everybody else should be, should be thinking, right, I need to go another stage again. To guarantee that I get back on team. So I think that development idea is going to help.
And you just don't know exactly what it feels like until you do it. That's the thing. So that's another great thing about it.
I mean, EO is an event, and an AWC is another event. I think an AWC is such a different event, and we certainly found people this year, their first time at AWC, people that are very experienced handlers, but it's their first AWC. I think they realised, okay, this event actually is different. It is not the same because it's that one ring event. But again, I think everyone that stepped on line at EO, it's suddenly when you realise, oh, I'm representing my country, and there's other watching me that actually really do want me to do well, and actually will be disappointed if I don't. That does add huge pressure to what is normally a very individual sport, and maybe your other half or your parent cares, but most people don't really care whether you do well. They're not invested at your normal runs, but suddenly everyone's invested in your run. It does make a massive difference.
And back to kind of giving the decisions to the handlers, like you were saying earlier. I think sort of like with the 4 teams, so 4 dogs in a team, giving those handlers the choice of who runs first, second, third, fourth. I think for me that kind of helped build the team sort of relationship as well. And because you kind of have to work with your team members at the event and, support each other and kind of get to know them and their dogs a bit as well. So kind of having to make that decision yourself as a handler instead of management doing it, I think helps you get to know your team members more and work together. Back to being more strategic about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's if we just said, oh, we want you to be first, second, third, fourth, that would stop all that discussion.
Exactly.
And also I think it's important that you've got, the team owns it. You have to own those decisions. If it's, oh, they've told me to be there and I don't want to be here. That's not going to work. It needs to be that, this is what we want, and I think everyone, all our teams this year, I think they all made really, really good decisions on their team running orders. They all thought about it, and there wasn't any team where I'm like, what are they doing? You know, which in
that's good.
Previous years when I've been on team as a handler and I've looked at the other heights, I've often thought, what are they doing? Like, how are they? Why are they running like that? What you know, or even God, they've just thrown medals away by running like that. You know, so I've often had that thought, and it's not been my place previously. But now as manager, I think if I had that thought, I can actually step in now. But I think our handlers are all becoming. They're really thinking about it, which is cool. It's, you know, they are so, and that is showing, I believe, in their results that they are thinking more.
Yeah, definitely. So on the other end of that, then, what do you think could have gone better and why for GB?
Well, we lost a couple of. Like I said, we lost. We lost the large. Should have had gold, but we missed a contact, which was for a dog and handler that you wouldn't expect that to happen to. So you could say, but I mean, that's what could anyone done, including the handler, have done during the year to stop that. You probably can't. It's one of those. It's a long-term issue, possibly, rather than you can't. It's not a fix. You couldn't do something different. So we lost that one. The intermediate team, we missed a dog walk early in the relay, but I think we'd have definitely podiumed if we'd not had the last pole down. So the last pole came down. Now that was potentially, I'm not sure, but the British crowd cheered quite a lot as that dog was coming to finish. So was it because of the home crowd that caused that pole?
Yeah. You're never going to know, are you, unless you could ask the dog.
No, but it was a definite thought. Was that, oh my God, everyone went up cheering just as the dog was coming to the finish jump. So it's a dog that doesn't normally drop poles. So
did it throw it off? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. We had a couple of people that I'd have had down for individual medals. Some didn't even get to the final. Some messed up the final. So, you know, if you look at it, individual stuff, those are mistakes that we saw. They're not always bad. I think sometimes it's quite good to have a bit of failure because it keeps everyone pushing back on their toes a little bit. You know,
absolutely.
I think we worried a little bit about having a really successful 2023. Is that would we be complacent in 2024? And maybe there was some complacency in some of the handlers. Maybe there wasn't. I mean, you know, it's down for them to analyse how their year went. You know, we certainly give feedback if we're asked. So as a team that you had those individuals, I think what would we change on our selection? Not much. I was quite happy with the selections. I mean, you can always again say, well, that dog might have been in, that dog didn't do well, it should be out, but you're always going to have that when you're picking this dogs. So there's not huge selection decisions I would change. I think we've probably learned a bit about people, dogs that we should have had, shouldn't have had. So you're always trying to think about that. But I think as a team as a whole, we had I think EO was a successful championship, without doubt. To the event, I think there was things they could have improved on. But again, I think every event you go to in international championships, you think they could improve on stuff. I think the big problem that FCI events tend to have is that every year it's a brand new group of people organising an event.
Yeah, you know, that's true.
From my own experience, you know, I'm into my 11th or 12th year running WAO, and how much we've learned each year and how much we improve every year is because of the mistakes that we've made. So, you know, that's the problem with the way they run these events, is that because it's a brand new committee, they're always going to make mistakes, and then the following, if they ran it for 5-6 years, those mistakes obviously they would not make. But
it's always someone new.
Because you don't have that central as much. It's so there was mistakes made in that, but I think that's normal. It's nothing. It's a normal thing to come back from an event and think, well, that could have been better.
Definitely. Always going to be something.
Yeah, and I think that's sometimes part of the international event for the management team. You know, that's our job to deal with that, and it makes it more interesting.
Definitely. That's it.
But yeah, I think on a whole it's successful. There's, you know, one or two individuals that could have made differences. There's I guess as a manager, a couple of times I suggested a certain route choice which didn't go to plan, and therefore you have to look back and think, well, did I make the right advice there? And we've spoken to handlers about coaching and in the debrief, as you know. So there's certain things that we're suggesting where they can try and help us more, so that we get to know them better.
Yeah.
So when we are giving advice, we know we're giving the right advice. And the problem when you've got 50 different dogs and 50 handlers, it's really difficult to know them all inside out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a lot of people.
And it is a lot. And even and you're not. You're not their week in, week out trainer either. So even if you're a week in, week out trainer and you've got 50 students, it's still hard to know those. But we struggle to know everybody as much as you should at this level.
Even a normal sized team's a lot. Never mind this year's.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's 2 or 3 dogs that have been with us on every championship the last 3 years. I think we now know them really well.
Yeah.
But first time people, you're always going to be learning from. And then people like to hide their weaknesses from the management team at times, which is part of selection, isn't it? The managers to know that actually my weave entry is not very good, or so we won't always get the truth, from people, because there is that selection process always going on, and as soon as EO's finished or AWC's finished, you're already being selected for next year, kind of attitude.
Yeah.
So
it's impossible to hide a weakness for very long.
No, weaknesses tend to show themselves nicely at championships. When it's really counts, that's when your contact does get missed for the first time, or your weave entry, you exit. Those kind of the mistakes get shown up more. So, but yeah, that's there's a couple of things that I would probably I've learned as well on the management side of how we dealt with a few people, and whether we could have done that better. That's something that I think everyone has to analyse. Management teams, from the selection to how we dealt with them on the preparation to how we dealt with them on the line, and then handlers, how did they deal with preparation, execution, being more honest on their resolving their weaknesses and those kind of things. So I think everyone has to sit back afterwards and look at that stuff.
Yeah, and as far as contacts, I know there's been a lot of talk about the FCI dog walk and whether that makes differences and stuff like that. So I suppose there's always going to be like little issues or little training issues that kind of have to be addressed outside of the event. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the contacts was a big thing this year. We as a team, we felt we had 1 or 2 issues. As a generalisation of GB, it's not true for every dog, but on some, and contacts is definitely we've had an issue this year. I'm not sure whether higher than normal or just we're now getting more picky, because we pushed the level and we are winning medals, and actually missed contacts have cost us medals, whereas before they've not cost us medals maybe, so they're not as, it's not as noticeable. So I think that's something that some GB handlers need to go away and look at and work on and work out why. And the FCI dog walk is a little bit longer, whether that's the reason they're missing or whether the weakness is there and it just emphasises the weakness when it's on a slightly longer dog walk. Is again, I think that as a management team, our job is to challenge people to not only improve but actually analyse themselves properly. And I think sometimes all handlers, it's easy to make an excuse that maybe not a real excuse or the real reason. So it's a case of and I think that's definitely playing a factor in from a just got my dog walk to a missed dog walk. Definitely that FCI dog walk can make a difference, but I think the big picture is, should it be a just dog walk on GB? I just got it on a GB contact, or should it be a much better performance there, and therefore FCI is still going to be a hit?
Yeah,
so I think there's lots of things to discuss for everybody. That people talk about the soft contacts through to the harder contact and the difference that makes. And again, I think probably it's a bit of an excuse culture there, and the dog's probably weak on that certain dog walk exit on a hard contact, but it gets it, whereas on the soft it's an inch higher, so misses it, but it's probably still got a weakness on its performance. So I think everyone just needs to be a bit more brutal when it comes to those kind of things on themselves. And I mean, I think the good thing is a lot of our handlers, once you've missed a dog walk at a big event like that, it's quite painful. And
definitely
they'll go away and resolve those issues to the best of their ability for next year.
Yeah, and you've got a good 5-6 months between the last event to the tryouts, which is a solid amount of time to either retrain something or at least work on something.
Yeah, I think handlers are going to have to prioritise nowadays a bit more. The level of international competition is, you've got to prioritise it, and you've got to fix these problems, and you've therefore got to take time off from maybe local shows and even national shows to actually make sure it's ready for the international event.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that unfortunately has to become the priority if you want to be at this level, because whether we agree or not, it's a professional sport. The people we're now competing against are taking it professionally.
Yeah.
Whether they're getting paid to be a handler or not, they are making a lot of money out of agility. A lot of top handlers and instructors, and they are working full time at being the best they can possibly be. So all handlers have to match what they're doing.
Yeah.
And there's unfortunately no excuses. If you want to beat them, you've got to go against them, and you've got to match what they do. It's life can get in the way, but if it does, sometimes that means you're not going to get to that level that you want to reach, which
that's it.
The brutal fact of sport. And it's one of the reasons why I probably quit as a handler at this level, is because I didn't want to work that hard anymore at the side and competing side. So that's something I think everyone has to just be aware of when they're goal setting and stuff. So.
Yeah, and make that decision, I suppose. How much do they want it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think you have to sometimes go, if that German dog beats me, and I know that I didn't work as hard as I possibly could, and that German handler was working as hard as they possibly could, well, that's beat me. And, it has to be an acceptance that, okay, well, they deserve to beat me because they worked harder.
Yeah, exactly.
So
what was your favourite part of hosting EO in the UK, and why?
I think our team results were really cool this year. I really enjoyed that. Our small team, it was the first time we've had a small team on the EO podium, so that's really cool. That's I think Matt and I set ourselves a few goals when we took on the roles, and one of them is to make sure that we're being competitive in every height, in every event, and I think that was kind of a last one that we cracked. We've I think had medals in everything. Small, every height, and in a team and individual, and that was our last small team, was the last one I think we needed to get. So that was kind of cool that we've now had a medal in every height, and in a team and in an individual. So that was nice. So that was good, and I think the development was for me quite pleasing. I was really found that the idea worked well. You should be taking us to another level hopefully soon. So I was pleased with the way that those guys came in. I was pleased with the way that they seemed to embrace what we were trying to do. The medals are obviously really cool, but it's other things outside of the medals were good this year. I think the culture was much better. As a team, we worked hard on that this year with a few things we brought into the team just to try and make everybody just more aware of other people and those kind of little things that we're creating niggle in the team. So I was really pleased with the way that our culture's improved, which can only be a good thing for Team GB, I think, long term.
Definitely.
But if I was going to pick one highlight, I think the small team getting the medal was really cool, and something that those guys deserved as well, just because they worked really hard. So and it's just nice that GB is fighting on every front now, which is I think also cool. Just the fact that we are actually every height in team and individual, we now have people that have a chance of a medal, which to be competitive in all 8 events is really cool. So lots of little things, but if I was picking a highlight, it would be the small team medal. I think.
Do you usually, over the past few years of being manager, do you normally see more medals in large then, out of all the heights?
Yeah, I think large was predominantly. I mean, Tash, when she had Dizzy, obviously was prolific during that time, and so. But pretty much, I think large was mainly our go-to medal. Large team was a medal for a lot of years. If we were going to get a medal, it was coming from large team. And then other medals were kind of a bonus. They weren't. I wouldn't say not expected, but they were sort of. You wouldn't have put a lot of money on those happening. So, I think I was given a stat the other day by our data analysis Tina. She said we've increased the medals by 620%
Wow,
since
that's a lot.
picking up some crazy stats.
That is insane. Yeah.
It's really cool, and I do think it's down to some of the stuff that we've done, but I also think we have a really cool generation of handlers, and we've also got a really good attitude in a lot of handlers now, to which I think has made a massive difference.
Yeah, definitely.
And also people prioritising international. They're starting to not only want it but actually do it.
Yeah.
Which I think we've had a bit of a culture of I want to be on team and I've made team, I'm happy now. Whereas now we've got a culture of being on team isn't good enough. We've got to do more than that. And I think that change has been really great in the handlers. And
it doesn't end with just being selected and doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we've and I think success breeds success. So the fact we've got a few, we've got some world class handlers and dogs in our team, haven't we? Which the gold medalist dogs that we've had the last couple of years. I think that success breeds success in other people.
Yeah, for sure.
Into the team. So there's a couple of times I've spoken to a handler about you've got to put a really good run in, not just about you, but actually about changing the atmosphere in the team today.
Yeah, because it affects everyone, doesn't it? Everyone's runs.
Yeah, exactly. We had a bit of a couple of days which were a little bit down at certain events this year where it's like always struggling, and speaking to a top handler or one of our better renowned handlers and just saying we need to run out of you and sort of really putting it on the line that you could really change the atmosphere here that could then win us a lot of other medals.
Yeah.
And we've got characters now that can do that. Previously it's been one or two people in the team, but now we've got 3 or 4 people that can really change the atmosphere, and that's really cool to have in your team as well.
Yeah, but that's definitely a thing where if your first run goes really well, obviously your next run's likely to go well also, whereas the opposite can also be true. And I think that's a skill in itself, is being able to have a bad run first and then not let it affect the other 3 runs, if that makes sense. I think that's really tricky.
Yeah, I mean, probably international events, they spiral out of control quickly.
Yeah.
Quite often, not just for an individual, but the whole team. You can get that. It's it's starting to be a negative day. 3 or 4 people mess up the first 3 or 4 runs, and then I think that builds pressure on other people that they then have to deliver. So it's a vicious circle. It drops the atmosphere in the team. It puts pressure on people running later. Whereas say when you start off well, it tends to really build, because then everyone's lifted and their own mentality is higher and more positive, which just goes down the lead to the dog as well, and all that kind of stuff. So it's one of the bouncing back at certainly in EO as well, where the one run you can be eating, but you can still, then the next run you can qualify for the individual final, you can still win individual final. So elimination there can sometimes be relevant.
Yeah, but 2 separate events technically.
AWC obviously a fault is a fault, and it tends to be the end of the event. But EO, you've got that chance of bouncing back really well. So it is a skill that people have to really focus on when they get to the EO.
Yeah.
Definitely putting everything to bed and starting again.
Yeah, definitely. So this one's a bit negative, but what was your least favourite part of hosting EO in the UK?
I do like the international trips. I do like going abroad. So that was obviously going to Warwick, which is about 25 minutes from my house, which I drive past nearly every time I ever go to a dog show. Was probably a little bit of a negative. One of the benefits of being on team is you get to go to some cool places in the world, Europe at least. So that was a negative, definitely. As a management, I think we'd prefer to be abroad because it just gives us some. You get there in the training day and that you do get 3 or 4 hours off, so you get to do a little bit of sightseeing, not very much. You get half a day somewhere, whereas here
more than you'd want to do here.
we're in Warwick, which there's Warwick Castle, which is pretty cool, but I've been to that
before,
about 25 times in my life. Every time we have a foreign visitor here, we take them to Warwick Castle. So there's that was a negative, I guess. For the event, there's 1 or 2 people I really thought were medalled that didn't, so that was those were disappointing. Not because of their performance, just you were like, this is going to be a medal, and it was. That's often like, as a manager, that's kind of your banker kind of didn't get the medal. So that was a couple of negatives, but that is, again, you're always going to have that. There's always going to be that. I wouldn't say they were negatives towards the event. I don't know really. It was. I mean, it was. I said, this year was. We brought in 6 medals, so it was always feel good. But I think the whole way through, we were very optimistic on what we were doing. We started off team day. We immediately had teams performing really well. So from
off to a good start.
The split second it started, I could see we were going to get good results. It felt, we're definitely going to bring home medals this year. We're definitely going to have teams in the final. We're definitely going to, so from the split second we started, I think because we got off well, it always felt good, which helps, obviously.
Yeah,
we just,
definitely. I'd say it's a good thing you can't think of too many negatives.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's. I'm not a fan of Dallas Burton surface. If I was to things, but again, what venue in Great Britain have we got that could run the EO that's better?
Exactly,
not. So it's a pretty good venue. I mean, it's got nice facilities with the pub there and that kind of restaurant and food, and it's easy to manage with all 4 rings in the same place. So that was all good. I guess the surface on the Sunday wasn't as good as it could have been. So those were little things, but again, they're little things that you're all going to get at an event. There's always going to be you're like, that could be better. That could,
hard to keep it perfect over the 4 days as well.
Agility with the finances involved in agility, we're never going to get the perfect venue.
Yeah, no, exactly. You can only do the best. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, we're not Premiership football team with all that millions of pounds to spend on a venue. So,
That's it. So you've already kind of said this, but do you prefer managing Team GB at home or abroad, and why? So you already said you'd probably go for abroad because, a bit of a different experience.
I think I'd go abroad, one, because you do get to do a teeny bit of sightseeing, you get to see something different, and that aspect of travelling, I quite enjoy travelling. So it's a short trip. I used to do a lot of travelling when I was on seminars routes, but you'd be away for weeks, so it's quite nice doing the short trips away and just seeing another culture and going to another country. So that's quite a cool part of it. I think it's probably easier being abroad just because it's easier to get the team as a team because they're travelling, they're in a hotel, or the majority are in the hotel together, so that part's a little bit easier to manage. But actually for the event, I think it makes, when you're actually in the ring or on the arena floor, I don't think it makes a lot of difference where you are in the world.
Yeah,
it's the same,
that's it.
it's a thing going on.
You're not thinking where you are when you're on the line at all.
No, yeah, it's an agility ring with equipment set by a judge. I guess British judges, I think, probably slightly played into our favour, a little bit this year. But we did as well on the European judges we did the British judges, apparently, so it didn't make a lot of difference. But yeah, I think when it comes to actually running the event itself, as actually being on the venue, I don't think it matters where you are in the world. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and I think we often get quite a few foreign judges over here anyway, which I think helps as well as far as when we go abroad.
Yeah, I think we've there's shows that Iconics is one, obviously, when the European simulators that Dog Sports Derby are running. Anthony's bringing judges in now all the time to Point Zero and the other event, the BAC event he's running. Obviously, as Joe ran, we were bringing in foreign judges each year, so there's a lot more exposure to the foreign judges, which then helps when we meet them. I think before, when I was on team, you really had to work hard yourself. It was about building the courses in your training and running them. You never got to run them in a competition environment. I think that was why it was always a little bit harder back in the day for that kind of that aspect of them being ready for internationals. It was all physical yourself. You built the course, you ran the course. It's harder work now. At least we've got some exposure to them without the building themselves. So yeah.
And I think as a whole, we've kind of, as a country, got more used to European courses. Like we see them in most judges do set that style now. We're moving away from sort of the old British sort of style of courses. So I think as a whole, we're getting better at that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, course design has changed so much in the last, well, since COVID, really. I mean, I think we've seen such a shift in course design and the way agility is running, that, yeah, I think, we have got judges that have embraced that and taken it on board, and we still, I think one of the cool things about British agility, not everyone will agree with this, but I think the cool thing is that we do get such a big variety of courses. So we do cater for whatever your taste in agility, you can turn up to a show that weekend and get it. We get a lot of social media issues because people don't accept that, but I think that actually is a positive for our sport here.
Yeah,
is that we have great variety. But obviously for the international competitor who's focusing purely on international, then that's not always an advantage, because sometimes you only want to see what the international counts. So it's kind of where we've got a culture clash going on a little bit. But I think now if you want to find international judges, you can find them quite easily. You can get exposure to them in a course running day or a training day or some of these events now that are set up to bring those judges in.
Yeah, definitely. So this one's more of a summary of everything we've said. So overall, do you think hosting EO in the UK had a positive or negative impact on the team as a whole? So handlers, dogs and management. So in summary, without...
I think I would say positive because, one, we did well, although we did well in Denmark the year before. So, I don't think it theoretically didn't change our results. But I think the positive was that we were allowed 16 extra people.
Yes.
So 16 extra people got to run at EO this year for GB, which can only be a benefit for us in the long term because of the experience that they got this year. So I think on that alone, therefore it's successful to do it here. So that experience. The rest of the event, to be honest, I think it's kind of neutral. I don't think it's the EO was here. So it was like the EO, it felt like the EO when we were actually in the arena. So it's kind of neutral, but I think, the additional 16 dogs we got to run, 16 handlers have got to actually experience EO. I hope in the next couple of years will prove therefore positive.
Yeah, definitely. So this is a bit of a strange one, quite specific, but they said EO was held in Denmark last year. Did you notice a difference in Denmark's performance abroad this year as opposed to at home last year? So I guess what they're trying to say is, do you reckon it has the same effect on other countries being in their home country as opposed to abroad as us? I'm guessing.
I can't answer that. I don't think. I don't have the stats to tell you the truth on the answer. I don't think Denmark have won many medals, but I might be completely wrong.
Yeah.
I know we focus on Germany as a that's the team that we're trying to cap. And like I said, we got a lot closer to them. I think we're doing as well as them in one respect, but in another respect, they're still the team to beat. Czech Republic are also a team that produce a lot of medals. So I'm not sure where Denmark rank, if I'm really honest. I know that I'm pretty sure AWC they got a medal this year. I'm pretty sure, so they were definitely on the medals at AWC. So EOs, I can't tell you what they got, and I can't tell you what performance changed between being at home and that.
Yeah. I'm sure people can do some delving into the archives and find out if they want to.
But... I think, find that one out. You would need to just go and look at those tables and stuff. I mean, I think I see with our results. Someone says, "Well, we got more medals this year at EO because you had so many more dogs." But our development dogs didn't get medals this year.
Yeah, that's it.
Development weren't there to get medals; they were there to get experience. Actually, we didn't pick them to win medals. I mean, it'd be cool if we did, but we picked them, purely on this is a handler or a dog or a partnership that we think in the future will be worth having. So our medal tally didn't change by having the additional dogs. I think because they didn't win them. I don't think having those 16 there benefited the others. It was here or there kind of thing. So, and if anything, it takes management attention away from those people, so they didn't get as much help. And so you could say it's a negative for them, really. But I mean, the juniors, we probably won more medals because we had a bigger team. Didn't really pick a development. We just picked as many good dogs as we could with the juniors, a different strategy. So potentially we did win more with those when it was at home. But I think our adult team at EO, I don't think we won more medals because we were at home.
Yeah. I suppose with juniors as well, like it's almost like the whole team's development because a lot of them are very young and haven't done it a lot before.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of our success stories as a management team is the juniors, because we've developed 2 or 3 that are coming to the senior team now, and and I think that's there's always been people coming through as well. I mean, that's actually all the way through GB. There's juniors have come into the team, so I think that's always been a British thing, but I think also it's something we are all quite aware of, that we need to keep making sure that juniors do progress through.
Yeah, definitely.
And actually running at JOAC is really cool if you get a medal, but the importance is actually that you're learning how to compete the correct way, the right way, how to act, how to behave in team, how to look after your teammates, and all those kind of essential things that life skills of being in a team. I think is important.
Yeah. So by the time they get to the adult team, they're prepared as much as they can be.
So when they come into the team, they come in as a benefit to the team, not as in who's that young upstart coming in causing issues. It's more they're coming in and already know how to be in a team and actually help that team get better, which I think we've had over the years, and hopefully I feel that we're going to have quite a few come through, because we have got some really exceptionally talented kids coming through the junior ranks that are really good competitors as well, that have got headspace, and so I think that's that's good.
Definitely. So what was your favourite year of EO and why? So since you've been a manager, if you had to pick a year.
I'd probably go Denmark, because that's the first time that we suddenly banged out medals.
Okay.
So I think Denmark was a bit of I always thought we could do well. The first year, 2022, I think we got 3 or 4 medals that year, which was really good and better than we'd ever done. But Denmark was the first time where we went, oh, we've smashed it. Sort of, we walked, that was like all right, I'm not full of shit. I've actually, I felt did happen. So I think that's the first time that was quite cool, just to know that actually, Britain, we are good. This is a good group of handlers. They do have the talent. They do have the ability. And we've displayed it this weekend. So I think that was probably one of my favourite moments. Is just because it was the first time we actually really, really actually achieved what I thought we should achieve.
Kind of set a standard for following years as well.
Yeah. So this year was good. I mean, enjoyed this year. We like I said, we brought home 6 medals, so that's always going to be a good year. But I think we expected to do well this year.
Yes. Yeah.
There was that. So, and I'm not saying I was shocked in Denmark, but it was that, okay, we felt we could achieve this, and we actually have. So it's the first time that we really, I think, from any event I'd been in for 20-something years, I think it was the first time we went home from an event knowing that Great Britain being the best country. And I think so that will always be probably one of the better years, just because of that. Yeah. That moment in, okay, we actually are. We do have the quality here.
Moment in GB history.
There's a lot of negativity. British agility, blah blah blah. I can't do this. I can't do that. But actually, we proved that isn't true. We proved that actually, what, British agility can be what it can be, and we can still go and be the best in Europe. So I think therefore that would be probably one of my highlights from all my time on GB, let alone manager, just because of that.
Cool. So a lot of people ask this specific question. So what is your best piece of advice for those aspiring to make Team GB in the future? So more of a selection point of view, I suppose.
Yeah, I think if you want to be on GB now, you need to buy into everything. You need to buy into the amount of work it's going to be, and then I listened to a Usain Bolt interview the other day, and it was quite interesting because he said, basically said, I was probably the most talented runner that's ever lived, but I wouldn't have what I did unless I'd worked harder than everybody else. And he said, because I still worked harder than everyone else. He was talking about his first few years in the sport where he didn't work as hard as he should have done, and was really disappointed because he thought his talent would carry him through.
It's not enough.
Yeah, and I think that probably, and if I look back on my own personal career, and again, I think I was fairly good at agility. I was a fairly good dog trainer. I was a fairly good handler. I was a fairly good competitor. But I know I worked really, really hard. I when I was on team winning medals, I was probably dedicating 20 hours a week purely to my international agility, be it my fitness, my dog's fitness, course running, skill running, research judges, all those little aspects going through to, making sure that I was ready. So I know that I worked really, really hard. And I think that's as important now as ever, if not more, that people really focus on, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it full-heartedly. And you can't, if you want to be on team, I think there'll always be an argument of why GB's doing better now, and I think there's lots and lots of reasons, but I think one thing the management team has done is they've let people know that if you're not working really hard and really developing and getting better, then we're probably going to give someone else a shot.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably an attitude change that, it's not just about taking who's the best on that day anymore. We are taking who's the best on that day, but we're also looking about who's going to be future and who's working hard and who's actually getting better. People are turning up with the same mistakes, the same performances. How many chances do you give them? And I think that's something that we've been clear about, where we tell the handlers all the time that you've got to be moving forward if you want to stay with us. I think so. Anyone wants to be on GB they need to look at every aspect of their agility, from their own personal fitness, their dog's fitness, to their dog training, to their handling skills, to their dedication to the time, to their understanding of the differences, but the real differences between international and national agility. And then their whole agility career is aimed at making GB. So if it's why are you going to that show this weekend, or why are you doing that particular run, it should always be about how is that helping me get on GB. Because a lot of times you might not be doing runs, but I also think the opposite sometimes, that people are actually not doing enough. I don't like this course, I'm not going to run it. Well, sometimes I think people need to actually, you do need to run that course because you don't like it, and you need to work on your game of performing on a crappy course that you don't like, with a judge that's not set, with a few angles that make you slightly nervous, because
you can't choose not to run it out there, can you? So
so you need to deal with that aspect. So it's people constantly ask themselves, every day basically, what is this doing to help me get on GB? Because if you want to compete at that level now, you've got to compete or prepare at the same level as the people that are doing it, and they are working hard, and so you've got to work as hard as them. And if you want to beat them, you need to work harder than them.
And there's a lot more to it than just like training your dog a skill, if that makes sense. Like there's, like you said, handler fitness, the dog's fitness, all these little things that will make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, handler foot. I mean, I used to put a lot of time into my footwork and stuff, just to make sure that as I got older, I put more work into that, because footwork wasn't as natural as it used to be, and I think just those kind of fitness things. It's not just about losing weight and being skinnier. It's actually proper fitness work. It's about, what's my acceleration like? What's my decel like? What's my footwork like on my front crosses and my threadle wraps? Have I got the footwork to get in and out of those quickly? And all just that teeny little aspect, and add that to everything else that we look at. I would do, with my dog's fitness, I would do core building and muscle strengthening sort of 3 times a week. Just little things that, I was 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, but actually when you start adding it up, you're spending hours and hours on all these little pieces that come together. So I think people need not only to put the work in, but they need to be getting the right advice. I think that's key. They need to be with right people. And that's not necessarily the top handlers. It's someone that's actually the right person for you.
Yeah, definitely. Again, everyone's different.
Yeah, and also, what makes someone a great handler doesn't mean they're a great coach, or trainer. Some are definitely, but there's also others that aren't. And when you listen to some of the dog training advice they give, and you're like, wow, you're lucky that your dog's that brilliant, because your dog training makes sense, So it's people actually looking at working with the right people, the people that make sense to them, the people that are pushing them in the right direction, the people that are resolving their issues, not just band-aiding issues. I think that's a big cultural issue we have. So it's big picture. It's setting goals. It's setting realistic goals. You know, there's, you know, if you've got a German Shepherd, no offense, but you're not going to win large AWC.
Yeah.
Days, you know, it has to be the right dog as well, and it has to be someone with the right. There has to be a certain level of skill as well, talent in the handler nowadays. I think you can't just keep bashing them. We have a lot of very talented handlers in the world that also work hard. So you've got to have something there as well.
Yeah, it's dog and handler, isn't it? It's 50-50.
Yeah,
like you've got to have both.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's some of the top handlers that are doing well. They're not the fittest people in the world, but they have exceptionally good reaction times.
Yes, yeah.
They bring other physical attributes that may be natural skills, but that's other things they're very good at. So there's analysing yourself and what can you improve, and the saying 1% difference in everything makes a massive difference overall. It really is true that is now what people need to be looking at.
And agility is just growing and getting more competitive, isn't it, with every year? So, you kind of got to keep up with that ever-increasing standard.
I mean, there's always somebody coming up with something new,
yeah.
And I think when I first took on the job, that was one of the discussions we had a lot about, rather than trying to catch them up, how are we going to actually overtake them?
That's
rather
it.
than catch the Germans, how are we going to beat the Germans? So that we are actually ahead of why they're not looking at what we're doing, and that's something everyone needs to do as well. Is what can you do that is a little bit outside the box that will put you ahead of the game? Because I'm sure we've not finished with the dog training and the skills that we can teach. Is always going to be changing. Being ahead of the game on course design is always changing. They're announcing the judges a year and a half in advance now. We're already getting a hint who the 2026 AWC judges are going to be.
Oh wow, yeah.
So they're not confirmed, but they kind of are unofficially.
Yeah. Lots of time to prepare.
Which AWC or which EO am I aiming for, and who are the judges likely to be there, so that you are prepping way in advance to make sure that you're ahead of the game on that kind of thing.
Can never start too early.
No, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you really can't.
Yeah.
I mean, like EO team on their journey home. I think put on the message of have a safe journey, everybody, and prep for 25 starts to, because it really does. It really does start, because someone in the world is starting. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So last question then, what is your best piece of advice for those interested in joining Team GB management in the future?
Join the management.
Yeah.
Have a thick skin.
Yeah.
Probably.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you I think it's a job where you need a thick. I'm sure any manager of any sporting team, you need a thick skin when you're picking people and selecting people, and I kind of like that people get upset that they not make team, because it shows they actually want to be on team.
Definitely, yeah.
But it's one of the difficult aspects of the job, is that I know that I'm going to face everybody loves me at the moment. I mean, it's for the next 3 or 4 months, it's wonderful that no one's horrible to me. Everyone's like, how are you?
Don't dare say anything out of line.
Walk around a show and you're the most popular person, but I know sort of April the 1st, I'll be walking around the show with people glaring at me and thinking I'm the devil. And we are trying to tell people that we really don't pick on personalities.
It's really not personal, no.
Yeah, we try, and we're trying to pick for the best of the team, but yeah. So first we need a thick skin. Secondly, you do need a lot of time. It's a huge commitment, and it's a job of love. We're not getting paid for what we do as anything that's worthwhile. So those are 2 things that you need: thick skin. You need a lot of time. I think the last 2 years I've done over 700 hours work on GB.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which is I mean, I'm lucky. COVID came along, which meant I got a lot of work done during the COVID period. Once I got the job, I put a lot of things in place. I did a lot of selection documents and in-depth prep and plans of what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, and timetables, so that it could just be adapted each year. So I did a lot of work during that time, so that was lucky. But even now, I mean, I'm self-employed, and I get periods of downtime from running events, and then I get really busy periods. So in those downtimes, I can dedicate a lot of time to G. So that's one thing. I think it depends what apart from those 2 things, it's about being able to deal with people. And that's one. And it also depends which role you're looking for. Are you wanting to be the manager? You want to be the coach? Are you wanting to be the data analysis?
There's lots of roles in it.
Yeah, we got. So I think if you're talking coach or manager, I think you need to really understand the events that we're going to. I think that's important. I would say, not being critical of my past managers, but very few of them got the opportunity to run at the events. I think, like you said, until you stand on the line of that event, it's really difficult to know what it's like. So I think that's even if someone, I don't think you don't really have to run to be an expert at coaching. But I think knowing the event inside out, knowing the tactical side of it, knowing what people have to deliver, knowing what people are like post event or pre-run, post-run, those things, and how you need to deal with those people. And we have very different characters on teams. From the person that's very laid back to the person that's very, very, for want of a better word, high strung. Or very emotional. It is a very emotional place to finish line, definitely. So I think it's knowing what you can bring to the team. I think it's and I think when I look at my management team, I really like them because we've got quite an array of. We've got male and female. We've got younger and older. We've got very experienced international competitors to people that haven't run actually at the event, as in the whole management. So you've got lots of different thoughts and different perceptions coming in, which really helps as a management team, I think, when we get to our selections and managing people. We've got somebody that can cope with everybody. So I'm not really giving a good answer, am I?
No, that makes total sense.
It's I mean, for coaching, I think for the coach needs to be good at is on training days, doing stuff that's beneficial, setting stuff up.
Knowing how to help everyone,
challenging and understanding the judges and being able to give the right advice to the different types of people you've got. Like some people, when you coach them, you basically just need to tell them, this is what you're going to do. Don't think about it. Just do what you're told. Kind of attitude a little bit, because that's where they're really good when they buy into it. Others, you need to let them, figure it out. So you just need to ask leading questions. Well, why are you doing that? And have you thought about this? And what do you think about that? And let them figure out what they want to do. And others, they're so good at what they do, they actually need very, very little advice.
It's not a one size fits all approach at all, is it?
So you need to be able to think about how you deal with all those different people, and be flexible for that as well. Which is a difficult part at times when I find it difficult not to say things to certain people that I want to say stuff. And that's my character is to sort of say it. And so it's always being aware of the people you've got.
No, definitely. And I think again, like even with being a dog trainer in general, like I think people think, oh, it's got to do with dogs, it's dog training, it's agility, but it's actually more of a people, like you're doing more with the people than the dogs. Do you know what I mean? Like it's their dogs, you're dealing with the people and they're dealing with their dogs, even as just a standard agility instructor,
I mean, I think the management role basically is to pick the right people. And to help them prepare as much as you can and be in the right frame of mind on the start line. It's we've discussed contacts in our last debrief, but we're not talking about training methods. I mean, my remit as manager is to say, right, you lot, we missed a few too many contacts this year. What are you going to do about it?
And then it's up to them
what could you have done better so that we can advise next year's team. It's not really me saying I think you need to get the manners minded back out and or change that method and get rid of those stride regulators and use a mat, or it's that's not my remit. My remit is to, and that can also be challenging because some people you're like, why are you handling like that, or what are you doing with that dog walk, or whatever. Or I saw you band-aiding that weave entry. No wonder you can't get it when you can't. It's which is your point to challenge them on those things, but it's not your job to actually do the training.
Yes,
Which,
yeah, definitely.
You're not their trainer. You're their coach. You're the team coach and team manager, which is a different. It's a different role because of that lack of access to them.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's lots of things to think about. But the thick skin would be my first advice. I'm good. Both Matt and Anti's coaches, they're both very thick-skinned. They've been around a long time. They both know. We all know when we select and we don't select someone. Certainly when you don't select somebody that you think, well, we're going to get a backlash from that one.
But you just have to kind of, it's part of the job.
Yeah, and some people will be disappointed because I think we said in our debrief, so you'll have heard us say that we did some analysis on 8 or 9 different methods of selecting a team. And what we found was that the top few places, whatever method we use, are the same. The lowest places, whatever method we use, it's the same. The middle places always become subjective, and those middle places, especially when we come to the EO 8 dogs, from 5th place down to 12th place, were very, very subjective, depending on which method you used or what opinion, what were you looking for on clear round ratio or speed. So whenever you get into those lower places, we're always going to upset more people. I think we only pick 8 per height. We always have at least 24 people a height turn up. That means 66% of the people trying out at the minimum looking up and not going to be happy.
Though, isn't it?
Yeah. So the majority are always going to not be happy with our decisions. Even if they agree with them, they're going to be disappointed. So that is part of the job. So it is being able to do what you think is right, regardless of the backlash you think you're going to get.
Yeah, I was going to say, as long as you've done, something you think's going to work, then. And maybe stay off social media.
So
that's never helpful.
Social media is quite interesting to see how people deal with being not selected, and sometimes you see the hidden meaning messages coming out, which are directed directly at you, and you're like, oh,
they're usually pretty obvious, aren't they?
They are friendly and subtle at times, but that is part of GB. I mean, myself, Matt, and Anthony that are currently doing the selecting, we've all been on the good side of selections, but we've also all had selections that we felt really hard done by. When we picked for something when we felt we really should have done. And myself and Matt, certainly, we're talking years ago, and we still feel hard done by years later. So, we've been there, done that. We know what it feels like, but I think it's what it is. So
And I suppose by trying out, you need to know that that's a very good possibility as well, if that makes sense. So by trying out, you are accepting that is a factor.
Yeah, I think the problem with agility at times is that a lot of people in agility is that they're their own boss nowadays, are self-employed, so they don't get any sort of feedback or assessment or
that's true,
or told what to do. So their whole life is not being in the team or being assessed. There's like students all think they're brilliant, so they're constantly told they're amazing. So they might not have heard for a year you're not good enough, and it's basically when you're not picked, that's what is being said in that way. You're not good enough. It can be quite hard to take if you're not used to that, and I think that's obviously one of the issues that maybe agility does struggle more with selections, and maybe footballers that have come up through systems know about. You get dropped by your manager, you get put on the bench. You don't always pick for every game because there's too many games or whatever it is. So they're used to that, whereas I think agility people maybe aren't so used to that. Once a year, when they're told you ain't good enough, or that person doesn't think you're good enough, you do get that more of a volatile situation.
Yeah, it's remembering it's not personal though, isn't it? It's remembering it's results based.
No, I mean, I honestly can say it's not. I mean, I want us to win medals. I don't care who wins me a medal.
That's your job,
So my number one priority. There's nothing worse than coming back from championship thinking we didn't win what we should have won. So exactly. And that's we put the management team put in way too much work to not pick the best chance of the medals. I can tell you, there's no way we would do this work if we weren't thinking
absolutely
chances of medals. So it's just it'd be actually crazy to actually, when you think about what we do, to think well, we had a better medal chance there, but we didn't take them because we don't like them.
No.
We'll work this like it's just crazy that's that, in the reality. But I do understand that people could feel that because I've been there on the other side of the fence, so I do get that.
But if they were in the management position, they'd probably do
I
the
think
same
once you've
thing.
done
So
it, and once you be in the management position, then you realise that it's a really you just know you can't, one, make everybody happy, but two, you are having to decide between two people that bring very, very similar potential, but you've still got to choose one of them because you've only got 8 spots or 4 spots or whatever it is. If you take everybody, then happy days, but we can't. We can only take this number, and therefore we have to cut it down. So
and it's so tight as well, like with the standard getting better, like at some of the times, like the Olympia semis, 1st to 8th or whatever, all in the same second bracket, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, just look at this year's AWC with 4 or 5 runoffs. Top level, including the gold medal for Dalton Iona. So it's tight up there as well. But when you're talking about why you're picking, you're also looking at why are we picking this dog? What do we need this dog to do? Do we need this dog to be an individual, flat-out dog? Do we need this dog to be, it guarantees you clear rounds? And then normally when you're picking a dog that guarantees you clear rounds, someone's going to think they've got a better dog because their dog's faster. When I go clear, I always beat them by 3 seconds. But that person goes clear more than you, so their stats give us that's what we're looking for at the moment, or that's what we need to pick a clear round dog, or someone else saying, well, I get more clear rounds than them. You're saying, but if I take you for individual, you're not going to win anything because you're going to go double clear, but you still won't be top 10. Whereas that person, they might have 5 faults, but if they get it right, we stand on the podium. So
strategy again, isn't it?
Yeah, it is difficult because people can, obviously, when you look at your own stats, you tend to look at what makes you the best and use that stat. And if we're not looking at that stat, then it's really difficult to argue with that person because they're like, well, I've got more clear range. You're like, well, we weren't looking at that.
Yeah.
And well, we're not. And then we did for that person. You're like, well, that person's a different height, so we needed a clear.
I think the more the individual handlers can kind of analyse their own performance in more depth, the better they'll understand almost, if that makes sense. So the more they'll probably be able to go, oh, this is why, blah, blah, blah.
I think the more people that have been on team, the more they probably understand why we're picking it.
Yeah.
Although they tend to be more disappointed because they know what they're missing out on.
Yes, true.
And then obviously the other thing with agility is a lot of our handlers, they make a living out of it, and being on Team GB is a very good marketing tool. How many of our handlers on their seminar adverts are in a GB top in the picture?
Yes. Definitely.
It's an exceptionally good marketing tool, whether people like it or not. It really is. And so there is that financial side of when you're not put on team. It's a business loss as well as a personal loss. So it is a complicated place with selection. And so thick skin is probably the number one skill anyone want to be on management.
Yeah, definitely. Good people know that before thinking, oh, I can do that one day, and then being shocked. And
I mean, it's some of that conversation if you just had makes it sound like it's a terrible job, but I actually really am currently really enjoying the job, and I plan to stay in the job whilst I really enjoy it and whilst I think I can make a difference. So I do enjoy what I'm doing. It does come off that there are negative parts of it, but it's actually really rewarding working with the junior team and watching them develop and be successful, and also working with the adult team and watching, well, not just them winning medals, but also how some of them have developed and really improved over the last 2 or 3 years with us. It's cool to see it. It's really rewarding. So there is a fun side to the job as well as that slight negative. Like I said, the negative, you accept you're going to get that criticism. It isn't that bad once you know it's coming your way. You just
it's being prepared, isn't it?
I know it's coming. In April, I know we'll get someone that's really upset with us, and will probably complain about us quite loudly on social media. But that is I can't avoid that.
No, exactly. It'll blow over for them, and then it'll be the next year.
Somebody, so it's just who it is. We don't know yet, but it will be somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. At least you know it's coming.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, that is all of the questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much again. That was
great.
All right,
no problem. Hopefully, it's given people an insight into being on GB in manager or as a role, and also some of the things that we think about, and so that you can actually get an impression about what we're doing.
Definitely. Well, lots of people asked for this episode, so
yeah. Well, I think also people the GB crew Facebook page, we're going to try and put more stuff out on there this year to try and certainly in the selection build up and how to get on team. We're going to try and use that a little bit more so that we've tended to be, once you get into the tryout process, we've been telling people stuff, but I think we're going to try and just put a bit more out on that GB crew page so that anyone, whoever you are, can see how to get on team, what we're looking at, why we pick people, sort of thing. So
yeah, definitely.
Just get information out to people. So if the people that are listening to this haven't joined that page or follow that page, just look at GB. I'm sure it's called
GB Agility Crew. I'm pretty sure.
Crew, yes. It's have a look at that as well, because we will. Selection document for next year is due out next week.
Oh, cool.
Tomorrow it has to be signed off, so that's Friday the 8th. It's been signed off, and then the chemical are publishing it.
Cool.
On the 11th, 12th, something like that. So whenever people are listening to it, if it's after the 11th, or 12th, you should be able to find it.
Perfect. Excited.
So,
preparation is key.
Yeah. But we go again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
guys, that was my conversation with Greg. As I said in the intro, I really, really enjoyed that conversation. And, Team GB is my biggest priority in my agility career at the moment. And it's just great to speak to the manager himself and get, further insight and advice from him. And yeah, really looking forward to next year, hopefully making the team, or at least trying to, in February at tryouts. And yeah, exciting times ahead. And if you guys want any more information, then feel free to DM me about it. Or I'm sure you can get in touch with Greg. I'm sure he won't mind either. But yeah, my DMs are always open. So make sure you're following me at Pause in Pursuit on all of the social medias. I'm super active over there, especially on Instagram. And as well with this podcast, I upload monthly Q&A boxes now. So on the first week of every month, I do a Q&A with myself where I answer all of your guys' questions, which is super cool. And I really enjoy recording those episodes. And yeah, that is pretty much it from me. If you're feeling super generous this week, then please do leave the podcast a rating or review on Spotify or Apple. That would mean the world to me. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you all have a fantastic week. I don't think I have anything coming up within the next week. No, I don't, except my sports physio appointment tomorrow. It'll just be another week of resting, doing what I can, staying positive, and yeah, online coaching as well. Loving that. My students are doing so well. If you are interested in being coached by me, then please do get in touch and we can discuss what you're after. I would love to work with you all. But for now, I will see you next week and I hope you guys have a great week. Bye, guys.